Hey there, my name is Mallory Smith. I'm going to be reviewing today the disorder known as ADHD. It's also known as Attention Deficit Hyperactivity Disorder. So, one of the first questions might be, what exactly is ADHD or what is Attention Deficit Hyperactivity Disorder? So, with that, the first few things that we're going to look at is like, what does that look like? If somebody has ADHD, what could this look like? How could this pose for them? So basically, it's going to show patterns basically inattentiveness or hyperactivity. They're very energetic mentally or physically. It does not mean that it just poses like they're running around. It can, but not always. And then just unable to really focus and pay attention. There's a slash in this disorder actually, normally whenever it's AD/HD. And what that really says is that a person has an attention disorder or they have a hyperactivity disorder or they actually have a combination of both issues with attention span and hyperactivity. This can interfere with daily functioning with many disorders, but with ADHD, this can actually interfere with the development in a child. This is very important to me just to preface a little bit. My oldest son is ADHD, high functioning Asperger's. So that's like a form of autism. So there's two things. However, he is 8 years old and we only just found out last year that his true genuine diagnosis and ADHD is what played a huge part in that. So if you hear me reference personalized things, that's why this is so close to me. So anyways, with ADHD, these symptoms are going to last about 6 months consecutively and consistently. With those, and with that being said, sometimes maybe a child is going through something, whether, maybe a parent is deployed or there was a death in the family or things like that. So with those things, it's going to show as, okay, maybe that kid is off for a little bit. But if these things are consistent and continue, then we might be looking at a disorder such as ADHD. So ADHD affects anybody, male, female, from young children to adults even. Children will pose it with disciplinary issues, to the point where they might even be put in special education classes or pull-out classes. These classes are just to kind of redirect the child, refocus them, and get them back on track. So with untreated ADHD, so there is a wide range of, if it goes untreated, you're going to see a wide range of behavioral issues, lower grades, so academic education is going to go down. People skills are really not well. Either they are overly people-y and they are too much, or they are not enough and they're very introverted. So with that, all these things have gone untreated. It's going to create a lot of issues for them, a lot of difficulties with relationships, whether that be relationships with a person, family, friends, or even school, academics, or work. So there is actually a common misdiagnosis in one gender over the other, and that's going to be in females or girls. So girls are more likely to have their ADHD overseen or misdiagnosed by even education, by teachers and things like that, or clinicians or doctors, because they actually tend to internalize. Girls tend to internalize their symptoms, and really it poses as anxiety when really it is ADHD. Because a lot of people, again, they think hyperactivity, they think of the child running around instead of your mind being really busy. So it poses anxiety. Women also show more subtle signs than men do. So when misdiagnosed, you're basically either getting the wrong treatment or no treatment at all. So that is what ADHD is specifically. So the first couple of signs that you're going to notice throughout ADHD is, again, unable to hold a long attention span. They can't stay on task. They cannot stay focused. They can't follow simple 1, 2, 3 directions. In, for example, my son, we could say, okay, hey, buddy, go get your shoes, tie your shoes, and then go to the car. By the time that he went and got his shoes, he forgot that he needed to tie them, much less get to the car. So just following simple tasks, simple 1, 2, 3 instructions, very disorganized, what we like to call present day scatterbrained, just unable to really form their thoughts. They've just got so much going on there. Easily loses or misplaces items, keys, personal items, important things, anything from important to very important, they are going to lose it. and they're unable to hold attention on a mentally draining task. In other words, if a teacher gives them, textbook work and they have to sit there and do that for 4 hours, this is going to be pretty difficult for them. So those are really like the first key signs of ADHD. The secondary signs is somebody that fidgets. They are unable to be still. They are not capable of being quiet 9 times out of 10. They talk a lot whenever they are in groups or anytime, like if you're at an amusement park or anything, they don't understand what wait your turn means. Their brain is just now, 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 now. And they don't understand how to just breathe and take a moment and if unmedicated. So they will interrupt you frequently. They do not participate well in quiet activities, either well or at all. Either it's a big struggle or they're just not able to do it at all. And they will also generally have issues in groups or a large number of people with the overwhelmingness and just not being seen or heard and things like that. So, the biological study behind ADHD is that actually ADHD is passed down anywhere from 75% to 90% through hereditary. So it's passed down through genes. That's a huge percentage. So 9 times out of 10, for example, I myself have ADHD. I was undiagnosed as an adult and as a child, and now I am as an adult. So, but this affects as many as 26 genes are defective when the gene is being passed down for ADHD. They have completed studies within families, twins, adoption, molecular genetics, and things like that. And there's brain abnormalities, meaning like there's an impairment, just with issues with the working memory. So the kid is not going to be able, or the person with ADHD is unable to understand like the concept of time and time management and things like that. So, there is impairment response within 4 functions. There is the working memory, and then there is internalized self-directed speech, that's talking to themselves, where they are trying to keep thoughts to themselves. They don't really have a filter, is what I like to call it. They blurt out. They either talk to themselves a lot. They self-guide themselves. They don't socialize. So it can be introverted or extroverted. With self-regulation, so this is the effect of their motivation or their level of arousal, things like that. So basically, they just have issues expressing their emotions externally or appropriately sometimes, and it can be known as outburst. For reconstitution, this is the ability to break down observed behaviors and redirection of self-mimic behavior. What this is, they're less likely to problem solve. They freak out. Their brain freezes for an ADHD person, and they can't analyze the situation, see what's going on, how are other people reacting, and so then they freak out. I think I missed one thing. I'm sorry. Frontal lobe with age. So by the age of 25, your frontal lobe right here in your brain is actually fully formed. So ADHD can biologically, structurally be, it can get better depending with that frontal lobe the older you get. So these are just some sample informations about functions with ADHD. Basically, for example, for self-management to time, are they going to put off doing things to the last minute? Are they late for work a lot or scheduled appointments? That was me. Self-organization, problem solving. They're just not really good at it. They cannot think on their feet. They're not really good at it. So for self-discipline, they just really, they don't think. Again, that's a no filter. They make impulsive comments. They don't think about what they're saying or doing. So then with their self-motivation, they are just unable to get up and do it. They're often called lazy, and they're really not. Their brain is just like drained before they even do the task. So then there's self-activation and concentration. So this is basically where they're just basically very easily distracted. So there is, with the brain and ADHD, this is talking about functional and structural and exposure. Like, does this actually come just from biology alone, though? So research has shown that these things are definitely found in the brain with the functional and the structural abnormalities, which is talking about like the defects and how things are hereditarily passed down and whatnot. However, with this, researchers also believe that ADHD comes from genetic vulnerability and environmental exposure and stressors. These stressors could be things like birth complications. Was mom under a lot of stress, either right in the middle, like during labor and things like that? Brain damage that was acquired. They were not born with it, but they were acquired with it. So maybe they got in a four-wheeler accident or something like that. Toxic substances, infectious diseases. Are the parents not having a good time in their marriage? So marital stress can actually bleed over onto the kids to contribute to their ADHD. major trauma of all kinds and lower level. Studies have shown that children with parents that have lesser education or live in a poverty-stricken area, that can also contribute to their ADHD. So there's different ways to treat ADHD. So there is the biological perspective with medication. So there's things like Ritalin, Adderall, Vyvanse, you name it, there is there. But basically, they're all a stimulant based. Okay. They now have these things that are called extended release versus instant release. Extended release is like you take one pill and it is great for that time, but it's also going to release later into the body with the rest of the medication to last a little longer. My son actually takes extended release. This is a picture of my family and I to just show you kind of the dynamics because we all actually have ADHD. My oldest is 8. He's the one hugging me on the left. My middle is 6, and he is at the top corner right, and then my youngest is 2, and he's already presenting things for ADHD. So for my oldest, like I said, we do Adderall, and he is on extended release. So that is how we treat him. My middle son is on Focalin. So that is a little lesser. It's still a stimulant, but it's just not as strong. But he doesn't need as much as my older son does. He also doesn't have autism to battle with as well. They both live very normal lives though. Now, then sometimes you might want to think, well, should we do a stimulant or not? I did actually go back and forth with this. And there are alternatives. These are things like Wellbutrin, Strattera, and Trophanil. These are generally, though, going to be whenever there's another coexisting diagnosis, such as anxiety or depression. So Wellbutrin, Strattera, and Trophanil are also commonly used, not just alone for ADHD, like the first ones are, but also for anxiety and depression. Now, there are also non-medicated interventions. There's things like psychoeducation. This is just basically professional treatment, so that way the person can better understand the diagnosis and how to cope with it. There's psychological therapies. This is individualized therapy, so you can set treatment goals, resolve conflicts, issues, things like that, just kind of manage their life. There is self-management training. This is where they build skills by including more structure and routine into that person's life with ADHD, making to-do lists, having a notepad handy, things like that. Group therapies, this is really for like marital families, things like this. This is where it's going to really help other people understand why are you the way that you are and why you operate the way that you do with ADHD. There's also technology-based programs. There's coaching. These things are all just intervention ways to help assist somebody in multiple ways. There is accommodations. This can be for work or school. Generally, you're going to see this a lot of times in schools where they can minimize distractions. Maybe they get extra time and things like that. And then there's advocacy. It's honestly where a person is able to advocate for themselves. Sometimes you don't always want to disclose that you have ADHD because there can be a bad stigma with ADHD. So with that, I just want to leave you with, if you are meeting somebody with ADHD, please don't dumb it down to one textbook way that it should look or be viewed or things like that. So ADHD can pose in so many different ways. In my family alone, just the 4 of us sitting here in this pretty little picture, we all battle it differently. So thank you so much for listening, and I hope that you got some good information and better knowledge and understanding out of ADHD, and have a great day.